Hey, Don McDowell from huntingfishing.com and Don McDowell Outdoors. We're here in Heber, Arizona, the epicenter of the wild horse debacle in Arizona that continues. And our discovery today is, I want to introduce Kathy and her mom, Bonnie, and our good friend Greg over here that are residents of the Heber Overguard area. We've got quite a few horses on the landscape that, in my opinion, don't belong here. The Forest Service has failed in their fiduciary responsibility to manage the forest, which includes these feral invasive species that are devastating the landscape and pushing the wildlife off. So Kathy's been involved here with the Gibson family originally since how long ago?
Well, my mom, 55. My mom has lived here in this community since 1955. My grandfather bought the ranch in 1935, and so my dad had been coming up since he was just a little tiny kid. And so, you know, over 80 years, the family has been in this area.
You're a local authority, most certainly. So, in your opinion, what's going on today? You guys have been inundated with the pro woofers, which is a story for another time. The pro horse folks. We're hitting horses on the highway. There's horses running all over the place. What's going on here?
Okay, well, a little background to kind of get you up to speed. I became really involved in the forest issues after the Rodeo Chetasky fire burned our family home. And it was the historic ranch structure that was built in 1970. And it burned that. It burned a log cabin that was built in the late 1800s, 1898.
The old original Houck.
The Jim Houck cabin, and he's a locally famous bad guy. He was Apache County Sheriff, and they said he had a lot of notches on his gun from the people that he had killed, but a lot of that he killed under the guise of being a lawman. So this historic homestead was lost in that fire, and that really, you know, it burned me in more ways than one. I wanted to bring common sense back to the forest, to say, okay, they're blaming the ranchers and the timbermen for this fire when they're the ones that have caused this mess in our forest. Right before the fire, my dad had been telling me it's a dog-eared thicket out there, and if there's a spark, it's gonna burn, we're gonna burn. And he could sometimes be a little bit of a doomsday person, so I kind of at the time thought, oh yeah, sure, Dad. But I knew too that it was bad, but just I didn't quite understand how bad until that fire. But that fire woke me up, and I saw that we lost our timber industry under environmental activism and management by litigation, which is no management at all. And we were going to lose our ranching industry in the same way if we didn't stand up for them. So I got busy and I went to work and I contacted my congresspeople and I went to all the meetings, and I ended up going through the court process as it happened because, you know, when the Forest Service did all their NEPA studies, did everything they were supposed to do, and then they had their timber sale, immediately the lawsuits began, the litigation began by the environmental groups. And I ended up through the process of that giving testimony at the Ninth Circuit Court level after it had been through the lower courts, and we finally won at the Ninth Circuit Court. But by then it was too late. There was no value to the timber. So having been through that, I knew that I needed to fight for our ranching community, and that was the start of it. Now we have a problem with the horse activists because these feral horses came across from the Indian reservation after the fire. The fences were down, so the horses just migrated from the reservation. There was no more feed down there. They were drought stricken. They did what animals do. They sought out better pasture. They ended up here in the forest around Heber and Overguard. And you know, now there's estimates, some people say there's 3,000 between Young and the state line with New Mexico. They say that there's close to 200, maybe 250 in the area right behind us. And the Heber wild horse territory that is out there is supposed to handle between, I think, 60, maybe 80 horses, if that. So the numbers are completely skewed in what should be out in our forests. And in the meantime, the horses are very romantic to people. So they've grown activists like like rabbits breeding. You know, when they first started with their Heber Wild Horse page, they had a couple thousand followers, and now they have 15,000 followers. These are people who live away. They don't live here, but they sure make a lot of noise, and they are out there accusing every rancher, every local person of shooting and killing the horses. And that's become a real issue for us in our community.
Okay.
Okay, just for clarification, what Kathy's talking about is this Heber Horse Management Area is 19,000 acres. And like you said, you know, the numbers are all over the place. We've heard that originally the court said it would take keep up to 40 horses. We're well above that. The ironic part about it is it's not fenced. So you can go catch 40 horses and you put them over here and put up a sign that says, hey, you have to stay in here. They can't read. They're going to wander all over the place. And we've talked to the Forest Service. They've got one set of numbers. You guys have a set of numbers. Game and Fish has got a set of numbers. Bottom line is nobody knows what the hell they're talking about. I would stand on it. So we've got somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000 horses up in this part of the state. So back to you, Kathy.
That's one of the numbers that I'm hearing currently, is there's between 2,000 and 3,000 from Young to the state line. And one of the issues that we face now because of these activists is actually being attacked while on the job. My brother and his crew member went out to rebuild a corral that was vandalized here in the last year or two. And while they were on the job site, one of the activists shows up on their job site and starts accusing them of being out there to steal horses because they've got a horse trailer. And this man spent probably, I don't know how long, just kind of, as you would say, poking the bear. Well, you're stealing horses. Well, you're here to steal horses. Well, this and that. And finally my brother said, no, you go look in the back of that horse trailer and see what's in there, and that'll tell you what we're here to do. We're here to repair this corral. We're here with building materials. We're not here to steal horses. And he literally kept agitating them. He wanted to get them to a point they'd get angry enough to hit him or something. But they refused. They know better. We've told them, don't do anything, they'll get you. And so they become under attack from these activists. My brother has literally had death threats because of the horse activists. They're on their Heber Wild Horse page and saying that it's the local ranchers that are killing these horses. It's just something they made up. They don't have any evidence of that. It's just something they made up. We are the ones that they like to hate. So he's had people, you know, say, well, they should just kill the rancher. And, you know, we've had a rally in support of our local ranchers because of these types of threats made against them. You know, I have a niece that has little boys that ride in this forest. She worries for her kids' well-being. And, you know, this is our national heritage. This is our heritage, our cultural heritage. So I'm looking into some things with the National Heritage Preservation Act. You know, from some of the things I'm learning with that, the government is not supposed to spend money on projects that destroy culture or destroy a heritage. But that's exactly what's happening with these horses and with the wolves, especially for eastern Arizona ranchers and New Mexico ranchers.
Well, I'd like to add one little thing. Several years ago, the Forest Service designated the Porter pasture that runs parallel to 260 and the Black Canyon as the horse pasture, and they were going to have 40 head, you're right. And what do you think? That pasture doesn't have a horse in it, and it is fenced. It belongs to the neighboring rancher, and they check it every day to close the gates that some of these people go through and throw the gates open.
Always just been the one that stuck with me because it is exactly what our problem is. Just what they said might be a problem is the exact problem that we face that now they can't seem to figure out a solution for. You know, it's been in the plans.
It clearly states in here, if they occur after the magic date in 1971,
they're trespass animals.
They're trespass, and they deal with it.
Yes.
So once again, we have the Forest Service failing to uphold their fiduciary responsibility based on their own language.
Based on their own language, yes. So it goes on, you know, you can read the whole act if you choose to, but I thought that this document, I've used it before in different things. I sent a copy over to Steve Best just the other day when I sent him a letter after my family was being harassed by the horse activists.
And he said?
My question, well, I didn't get a response. Unless it's hiding in my junk email, which I'll give him that out, I'll go check again. But I have checked and there hasn't been a response to me personally, although there was an article in the paper where I kind of thought he might have been talking to me a little bit.
Well, one of the things that I'm concerned about as a sportsman and a conservation activist, we raise hundreds of thousands and over the years millions of dollars to put water projects in to enhance the habitat, to protect the wildlife, to grow the wildlife. And what's happening up here is the horses, they're bullies. Doug has called them bullies of the range, and they hoard water holes. They're chasing the elk, the deer, the turkey, and everybody else out. I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't have projected closures from the Forest Service over this whole issue. A, they don't want to deal with it. They're afraid of social media. They're well below their pay grade. When this whole Heber thing, there was a court order that don't pester the Heber horses. Well, fine, that's the horses in the 19,000 acres. They're not there anymore. Go get 40 horses, put them up, fence them up, and then go get the rest of them. But what I'm afraid of is, like when the fires came, the Forest Service locked the gates.
Right.
Okay, instead of opening this thing up for timbering, we've got woods that are still trashed, getting ready to burn again. And it took an act of Congress to get the gates back open again, but I'm really afraid moving forward in the near future we're going to have closures preventing hunting and other kinds of recreating up here in 3A, 3C, over into 4B. The horses have been sighted in 4A, so this whole northeastern section of Arizona is highly at risk. And it's part and parcel of, I can't blame the Forest Service totally. You have to blame the BLM for their failure, because they're tasked with the horse and burro thing, and they're not doing a damn thing except housing them to the tune of $70, $80 million a year. Yeah, they have an adoption program. Anybody that wants a horse or a burro, they can have one. Just go get it. But they're not doing that. So that leaves a couple of different options. And
Don, doesn't the state fund, or the feds fund, horse hotels in this state?
Yes.
Is there millions of dollars a year being spent on horse hotels?
Greg, we're spending somewhere, and I don't think they're being truthful. The number that they put out there, and I'm going to say approximate plus, maybe 10,000 head, about 52,000 head currently, to the tune of in the neighborhood of between 70 and 80 million dollars a year. And it's just going up. It's just going up. As opposed to some of the other options that we have, the zoo industry. We are importing horse meat to feed the big cats from Europe, from France. Why are we doing that?
There we go.
We have an abundance. It's ridiculous. We used to consume horse meat in the 48s up until 1985. And we're one of the few countries on the planet that doesn't consume horse meat. It's better for you. It's less in fat, and all these good nutritional things. China, as an example, imports over 5,500 metric tons annually to eat.
And
We've got a profit point. You get them to Nogales, 20 cents a pound on the hoof. Who knew?
Well, here we are, right here halfway between Payson and Heber, Arizona, right off the 260. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. There is the wild horse that has actually morphed in from a invasive species in feral livestock into a wild horse. 21st century, this is wildlife. Do the math.